Next on our agenda is Evergreen Solutions, and we're aware that on the 19th of September, the Board of Commissioners approved the contract with Evergreen to do a financial review of Lee County schools. And so tonight we have Evergreen, Dr. Rico?
Rescia.
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 Doctor. Dr. Rasio, if I said that right. Thank you for being here on this evening. We've been informed that on the 14th of November, I believe it is, that your staff will be in Lee County to do a diagnostic review with some interviews of school board members, department heads, senior managers, and a select group of community leaders. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Let me start this by allowing the finance chair to go, and then we'll go back and do whatever we need to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Rescio, with all due respect, my personal experience with consultants is that a consultant is hired to validate through data the opinion of those paying the consultant. Now, I myself was a consultant at one time, so I think I know something about consultants. Consequently, I'm on record here as a board member in opposing the waste of the taxpayers' money for a financial review, particularly in light of the audit report that we just received from Dixon Hughes. That being said, however, as you go through your process, you will find Lee County Schools to be transparent, open, and willing to provide all the data needed in performing your financial review. I want that to be stated clearly. We will not be an obstructionist. We want to support your efforts in this financial review. However, I do have three matters I'd like to address. And one is, what time during the financial review process can this board expect your presentation of a written draft report so that we may have dialogue in a transparent manner like we are having here tonight in discussing your interpretation of the data? Will you avail yourself to come to the board for that final draft when you have that final draft?
Yes, sir.
Okay. By a predetermined schedule that's
And most
available?
likely, we're talking about the end of January or February.
Okay. Now, secondly, previously Evergreen performed an audit of the Beaufort County Board of Education at the request of the Beaufort County Commissioners. I'm told neither your initial report nor your 2007 final report has been submitted to the Beaufort County Board of Education. Could you tell us why in your opinion, the Board of Commissioners did not submit your final report to their Board of Education?
No, sir, I cannot.
Do you have any mechanism of follow-up to public sector agencies that you have worked
I
for?
have not been in touch with them for 4 years, but I'd be happy to ask the question.
Okay. In my contacts with the previous chairman of the Board of Education, he willingly gave me this information. And thirdly, despite the fact personnel at DPI called to your attention numerous errors and misapplication of data and a clear misunderstanding of the statutes of North Carolina, your initial and final reports recommended that a CEO take over and assume the constitutional office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. This recommendation clearly violated the North Carolina Constitution and in fact was ruled unconstitutional later by a North Carolina Superior Court judge. Could you tell us why you and your staff persisted in making this
Sure.
recommendation?
Sure. The study in question was conducted for the General Assembly, and our report went back to the General Assembly. The report was reviewed by the state board, by your association, the School Boards Association, as well as the Superintendent's Association, and we were provided input, and we did respond to that input, as well as the State Board of Education. And in fact, the recommendation in the report for the CFO position was endorsed by the governor-elect and recommended by the governor-elect. It was not until several months later, as I understand it, and again, my report was already in and I was not involved in the political process, that the Attorney General got involved and overruled. But the report itself, Evergreen's report, was endorsed by all parties.
As a side note, the North Carolina Constitution requires or states that an elected state superintendent be elected by the citizens. Certainly there's was some misinformation at that point in time when you were commissioned that previous to that, the politics of it had eroded the role of the superintendent of public instruction. It's my understanding when I had conversations with some state board members and DPI personnel that that was not taken into account, that in the final analysis, those members felt that it was clearly understood that this would violate the Constitution that was written. It became not political at that time, it became a court of law. And when it was legal action taken, the Superior Court judge ruled that this recommendation to be implemented was a violation of the Constitution, which ended up somewhat embarrassing to the government. I just say that in conclusion, these matters are of concern to me and reinforce my conviction that this financial review will be a waste of our taxpayers' money here in Lee County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ted. Ms. Suicio, I want to just kind of follow up with a few things. Ms. Tatum asked a question about Beaufort County.
Yes.
And I know that you've done Davie, Wayne, Duplin, Burke County. How many of those school districts has Evergreen followed up with to see how many of the recommendations that were made, how many were actually implemented?
We're talking about a numerical count, sir?
Yeah, just as a practice.
No, I don't have those statistics. No, we normally don't. In fact, very rarely do you have the opportunity to go back and count. In the state of Texas, in the state of Florida, originally we had that opportunity because the state legislature required that take place. But in individual school districts, we're rarely called back to check on the numeric total of implementation.
Would it then be surprising to you if I was to share with you that out of the 50 recommendations for Davie County, only 20-something were implemented? Out of Duplin County, none were implemented. Out of Burke County, a handful were implemented. That all the work that you've done, that there is no follow-up to see if the money being spent, if anything is happening.
I don't have those statistics, sir. Those statistics were not shared with me, and I'd be happy to follow up with my clients in each of those districts, but I just haven't done that, so I cannot agree or disagree.
Okay. No, I didn't ask. I was just asking, would it be surprising to you to hear that?
Very much so, since I received accolades in several of those communities.
Okay.
It would be surprising, yes.
You were mostly hired in those communities by county commissioners to look at school boards?
It varied. For example, in Alamance, Burlington, I was hired by the superintendent, then superintendent, and he asked us to come back for 2 additional studies,
Okay.
as one example.
Okay.
In Duplin and Davie, it was clearly, in Beaufort, it was clearly the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay. Okay. And in Lee, it is clearly the Board of County Commissioners.
Right. I will say in 2 of the other counties, though, it was clearly endorsed by the school board, which is the case in Davie.
Okay. With that being said, the term, and as I opened up, I said a diagnostic review.
Yes.
When I hear the word diagnostic, that means you're looking for something wrong. Is that, has anybody from the commissioners or anywhere said that there may be something wrong when you use the word diagnostic review?
Not at all. That's not our interpretation. A diagnostic review is to analyze the lay of the land, if you will, what is, and we look for both commendable practices as well as areas needing improvement.
Okay. Mr. Akinosha?
Yes, I know that Dr. Horacio, for the record, are you a CPA with us? Tell us your
As
qualification.
I am president of Evergreen Solutions, I am not a CPA. I have CPAs on my team. This is not a financial audit as defined by,
That's my next question.
Right.
Can you define
sure.
performance audit and a financial audit, performance review, or what you're doing? Because during this process, we have people using this word interchangeably.
And I can
you-
understand the confusion.
and they're using it sometimes as equivocation. And I want to say to you that I want to hear your own side of what you're doing, because right now I don't really know what you're doing. Sometimes we hear in the paper, just like anybody else, financial review and financial audit. Can you please explain to this board the difference between financial audit and financial review? And then the next question I will ask when you do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And they're defined within our proposal, so I just wanted to make sure that you had access to a printed copy or as you all do, an electronic copy. Anyway, we are not CPAs. We do not do an annual financial audit as this gentleman has done in 25 districts, including your own. We rely on the results of those audits, because every school district in America has the type of audit he does, to look for compliance issues, what's in compliance, what's out of compliance, the type of controls in place. We rely on those audits. Our performance review, financial review, is an efficiency and effectiveness study. What are ways that the school district is efficient? What are ways that is very effective? What are ways for inefficiency and ineffectiveness? Okay, looking at numbers, yes, we gotta look at numbers, we've gotta look at data, but we are not looking at what a CPA firm would look at as far as an external audit is concerned.
The next question is, can you then find a smoking gun that somebody stole money or embezzled money or money is not being used? Can you find?
That would not be our purpose in doing an efficiency and effectiveness study. If we saw that a $50,000 check was given out to a fictitious firm, for example, we check to see what the facility. Can I give you a hypothetical
You
example?
can go ahead.
Okay. If we saw, for example, we were studying your facilities,
Okay.
and we saw that a firm, Mr. Smith's Construction, was giving $50,000 to repair a roof, and the roof wasn't repaired, then we would question the legitimacy of that effort and say, well, why is the roof still leaking? For example, it's not efficient or effective
But
in its
your
current
job,
state.
but your job is review, not audit.
Our job would be a review and audit, sir, is a matter of semantics as it
That's-
relates to performance, not as it relates to finance. If
Exactly.
you look at the Yellow Book standards, for example, that the U.S. government imposes on consulting firms and CPA firms, there's a clear difference between a performance audit review and a financial audit.
I understand that. That's why I was asking you to define what you're going to do. Are you a Sigma certified? Do you know about Sigma, Six Sigma? Or
I'm
Lean
familiar
Sigma?
with Cigna, and some of our members have been through those training courses, but we're not certified, no.
Okay. Because if we're talking about performance audit, I've seen it done when I was working in corporation, and most people have a Sigma certification, Six Sigma, Lean Sigma. You don't know anything about.
I'm very familiar with it, but most consulting firms that do the performance reviews in school districts that I'm familiar with do not have that certification.
You don't have that certification?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to ask you another question. Do you understand the local board of education is an independent government entity separate from a local board of commissioner as determined by the North Carolina statute. Do you know
Very,
that?
very much so, and based on our experience, and members of our team have been superintendents, assistant superintendents, and school board members. We were educators before we became consultants.
Okay. My next question is, many of your final reports, you comment some savings. I serve on the finance committee here. And you comment management, savings on management operations and savings on other things. And sometimes when I look at some of these things, the savings already been done by those schools from what we hear around, and some of those statements become misleading. Because just let me give you an example. We'll be eliminating of positions paid by grant. In some of your reports that I've read, an example will be elimination of position paid for by grants. When grants goes away, what happened to the position paid by grant?
It varies from school system to school system. Some school systems absorb those positions, and they're paid out of the general revenue. Other school districts have terminated those positions, eliminated those positions.
So how can we then put that in our report as a savings, as a savings, you know?
If a school district, for example, again,
Okay.
another hypothetical, because I don't know what report we're talking about, has had a grant for safe schools.
Okay.
And it was funded by the state and the money dried up. Okay, whether or not that position for that particular grant would be carried on the general revenue through local dollars would be a decision made by the school board and the administration. In some cases, perhaps it might be very advantageous to keep that position. In others, where the position was found to be ineffective, it would be disadvantageous, and we might have recommended the position that was carried over through general revenue be eliminated.
Okay. Because in Lee County, we do not keep individuals employed with grant funds. When grant funds leave, we don't keep them.
Well, you're unique. I'm telling you that many other districts do. So therefore, if you don't, that is something for us to know as performance reviewers.
So then that would mean there would be no identification of cost savings.
If the position was eliminated, that is correct.
Because we just don't want to have surprises of fictitious statements and duplication, equivocation. We want something straight, that when anybody picks it up, it will not just be anything that will be surprising to anyone. We want something that will be a straight shot. We don't want duplication. What we've already been doing, we don't want it to be another recommendation because we're already doing it.
Right. Well, as I understood from Mr. Tatum's request, that you would have the opportunity for, or you're requesting the opportunity to review a draft which would actually delineate these issues if they existed, correct?
Okay.
Doc, let me ask you and make a statement and, well, ask a question. September the 19th, the Lee County Commissioners has limited your study of Lee County schools to a financial review. Am I correct?
As defined within our proposal, sir, yes.
Okay, so it's not a performance audit. It is a financial review.
It's a efficiency and effectiveness review as with a look at, looking at finances to determine efficiency and effectiveness, yes.
Is it not School Board of Education that can hire you to do performance audit by the law in North Carolina? Performance audit. Is it not the Board of Education that have the authority to hire you to do performance audit?
You could have hired me to do it, yes.
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 But what I think Mr. Akinosha is asking is, the commissioners have a right to look at all financials and do anything with financials, but a performance audit
Has to be Board of
has to be done by Board of Education.
Because-
So,
By general statute.
y'all gonna let me talk? So, our question is really for clarity, so that, number one, you're not feeling like we're opposing you, because that's not what we want to do. We want to cooperate, but we want to make sure that the lines are clear.
Right.
That when we say financial review, that means to us that all you get to look at is financials. And it's been clear that in our letters that we receive from commissioners that you have a desire to talk to employees and to staff and to board members. How does that relate to a financial review? Because then that would also lead to us having to suspend policies if we allowed that, because at this point, we have policies that prohibit you and prohibit staff members from talking to people in that respect.
As I understand it, and again, this is something that you and the Board of County Commissioners need to ascertain as opposed to the person that's on contract. But as I understand it, this study has been done previously in several of the communities in the state of North Carolina, and it was defined similarly in our proposal when we were awarded the contract. We're not setting a precedent here in terms of looking at something different than we looked at before.
But, go ahead, Dr. Smith.
Yes, and keeping with what Mr. Williams has said, and I was looking at your initial, data request
Right.
list. So if you'll answer these questions for
Sure.
me. For an example, item number 3 on the initial data request list, and that's in the general item is benefit rate for personnel. So what is the purpose of that question?
First, the question, and using a very fictitious example, if your benefit rate was 80%, for example, and we compared it to other districts throughout the state and other districts nationally and a national best practice standard, it might be out of line. And that's part of the financial, would be part of a financial review to see if your benefit rate is appropriate for, commensurate with best practices, best financial practices.
So if in your report, then, would you recommend that the Lee County Board of Education say cut employee benefits?
We might recommend that you consider looking at, again, using my example, the 80%, that it might be out of line, and that might be a way to be more efficient and effective by this board looking at 80% as opposed to a normal percentage of about 25 or 30.
So you're saying then that you would compare us to other school districts?
Yes, ma'am. And best practice standards that are seen in school districts throughout the country. We maintain a best practice database, which includes those standards that are recognized by national associations and others.
Okay.
Dr. Smith, I would piggyback on that question you just asked. What would be the peer counties that you would compare Lee County to? If you
The
would
peer
use-
counties that were chosen, that we recommended, and I've got them here, so I haven't.
Okay.
Okay, Franklin, Granville, Pender, Rutherford, Stanley, and Surrey, and at the request of the superintendent this afternoon, he requested that Chatham be added, and we have no problem with adding Chatham.
You said Greenville,
Yes, I'm sorry.
Pitt County?
Franklin, Granville,
Grant.
Pender, Rutherford, Stanley, and Surrey were the ones who recommended. That was based on total students, total staff. There's a whole list here. I don't know if you want to, I can email you this. Pupil-teacher ratio, ethnicity, percentage free and reduced lunch, percentage of students in special education, and many other variables.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back,
Who
Dr.
picked those schools?
Evergreen recommended them to the Lee County government, and they were okayed.
I want to go further. What is the population of Greenville?
No.
Granville?
Granville School, sorry, Granville.
No problem. The population, the total staff is 1060, you're at 1198. Lee County, total students, 9,800. And incidentally, I'm looking at 09-10 statistics because that's the last year that the Education Statistics National Center for Ed Statistics has comparable data. So I don't want you to think I'm looking this year. Your total students, 9,800. There's Granville, 9,000.
Yeah, that's why I was surprised that you didn't mention Chatham first, because Chatham is our next door neighbor here. We don't have much in common with Granville County and Franklin.
Actually, Granville
Surrey.
is closer in statistical comparison
Yeah,
than
it's
Chatham.
closer, but our demography is a little bit different.
Right. Well, we have agreed to add Chatham, and
Okay.
Going back to
Yes,
the, I want to go back to the question that I asked you originally. But are you aware that the benefits are set by the state and not by?
I'm aware that some of the benefits are set by the state, yes, many of the health insurance, for example.
Let me ask you, while I'm asking questions, also on the initial data request list, number 34, and that was the analysis of, health claims. Are you aware also that these claims are administered by the state and not by the Board of Education?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are you also aware that this request is also protected by HIPAA?
I am, and the superintendent and I discussed that, and that I agreed that we would
We'll
not be.
eliminate that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got a couple of questions, Ms. Reese.
Sure.
Just to expound on what the chairman was asking earlier about interviewing us individually and things like that. And I'm sure you're not completely aware of all the policies that we have here in Lee County.
That is correct.
Right.
But while conducting your review, will you be requesting to waive any of our policies?
I was not aware that you had a policy with regard to a consultant being able to conduct interviews until I met with the superintendent this afternoon.
Okay, but
I
he
have not
did make you
reviewed your
aware of those.
policies.
But
Yes.
he's made you aware of those.
He has made me aware that it would take, there would have to be a waiver of some kind from this board as it relates to the interviews that we have requested for the diagnostic review.
With your financial review, I want to go back to that again, of the school system involved delving or crossing into non-financial management activities?
Only as it relates to the dollars. Let me give you an example, perhaps. Recruitment, teacher recruitment. If you used, if your budget showed that you had $100,000 as a line item in teacher recruitment, and I asked to see your teacher recruitment plan and what fairs you had been to, and your director of HR could not identify any recruitment activities. The linkage between performance, efficiency, and effectiveness as it relates to the financial review and what the $100,000 is being used for would be a question.
But see, you're back to a performance review.
That I'm back to again, the efficiency and effectiveness as it relates to finance. And this was again, sir, I don't want to be.
No, we're not.
This was in our proposal as defined.
And our problem with that, with your proposal, is that it would cause us to violate our policy and some of what the general statutes have said that we have as a Board of Education.
Right. And I've
Also-
not run into this before, I'm sorry, in all the districts that I've
Okay.
worked with in the state of North Carolina.
And maybe, it may be because in the forefront, it was a working connection between Board of Commissioners and the Board of Education to help this process come through, so all of that was worked out. And that the policy or whatever the proposal was agreed upon prior to a proposal being given by both boards.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, you're here in a situation where that did not take place. And so now we're here trying to make sure that where you're trying to go, that we're comfortable with as elected officials here to represent the board and the students of this district. And so that's why if you feel any kind of hesitation and step back, it's because this board is trying to play catch up to see what exactly you're trying to do, and then to see how it fits within our board policy and what we will accept you to do. And with that being said, I want to ask my last question, I think. Feel like I'm in a courtroom. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the general statutes of North Carolina, particularly General Statute 115C, 429C, which details the information the Board of Education is required to provide to the county commissioners or its agent, namely Evergreen, bearing on the financial operation of a school system.
Am I familiar with that particular statute? Could I quote from that chapter? No, sir.
Okay. And again, that takes us back to where we are with what we can, what they have a legal authority to receive from us, and what we have provided to them, and where I think you're trying to go, or what you've been hired to go to, crosses some major lines for this board.
I have just a couple questions, Ms. Riccio. Item number 25, information that you had requested, any workflow analysis / process re-engineering completed. Could you explain what it is you're looking for in that?
Okay, was that related to finance? I'm sorry, sir. I don't have
It
that
was
list
related to
right,
the budget process.
The budget process, just the flow of the budget process, how it goes from individual to intro, the extent that cost centers, meaning individual schools, are involved in the process, if they have input into the process, if their requests might be denied at particular points in time. The same with the cost centers in the central office in terms of input into the process, and the flow of that, how smoothly it flows, and
Okay, thank you. That explains it a lot better. Just a couple questions. In all of your final reports that I have seen to the public sector clients that have hired you, you consistently recommend significant net savings. And I wonder, has the county manager or any member of the commissioners asked for an anticipated net savings that might be expected from your final report?
here in Lee, no, sir. Nor have I had any interviews yet.
Okay. Just one more question. In our contacts, in our contacting of references from the other districts, your firm during these staff interviews has gleaned information concerning cost savings that had already been incorporated prior to the review, and in turn this information showed up in the report as recommendations from your company. Should we expect the same thing here in Lee County?
Well, there are a couple instances where that has occurred. Sometimes between a draft and a final report, the superintendent and staff have said, what a great idea, we can do that immediately, let's do it. And have asked, often they're called to be accountable to whomever, the public. And they like to say, hey, we did that one, so keep it in the report. That has happened on numerous occasions. And because it's one that can usually click off and say, hey, I did this, we already saved $30,000 or whatever it might happen to be. I don't remember of any time that we have kept something in that we've been requested to take it out because it's already been done.
Well, I noticed just one example that comes to my mind that I recall was a recommendation and a savings was attributed to it of maintaining 100% efficiency as it pertains to transportation. And in that particular county, and I can't remember the name, it escapes me, they had been at 100%
Right.
efficiency, but yet that savings was incorporated in the bottom line, even though it hit as a recommendation.
I'd be happy to look at that recommendation, sir. I don't have them all memorized.
I understand.
And as I mentioned to the, I mentioned to the superintendent, if there's any questions on any particular recommendation in any county's reports, whether it be in North Carolina or in Los Angeles, let me know and I'd be happy to analyze it and provide some information. But off the top of my head, it's just
This particular one was Wayne County, the one.
Wayne County?
Wayne County, the one that it was trying to cite. I have one more question for you before you go. Maybe I can ask the question. In many of your reports, listing changing nutrition indirect cost.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware we cannot charge indirect cost unless unless their fund balance is above 2 months operating costs?
In the state of North Carolina,
Yes, in the state of North Carolina.
Right.
If the recommendation is...
That is not a national, that is a state requirement,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Okay. If the recommendation is a bill price increase, is this not a tax on the segment of our county? Is it not an increase in tax on the segment of
We
our county?
talked about this a little today with the superintendent, and I guess the articles that I've read and the research we've done in terms of the tax and the savings and that type of thing is that if parents did not, again, we're not talking about free and reduced lunch, correct? We're talking
Yeah,
about
but people were paying.
full price meals.
Yes.
That what we do is look at the how long it's been since the particular price, with the cost of food, with the cost of food rising, and the difference being if parents pack lunches, what it would be, what the cost would be to pack lunch versus what the school lunch would cost. And we do that numerically, and it varies from year to year and school system to school system depending upon the cost of food. It's not a blanket recommendation.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
I have. I have a couple of questions. I think you're going to be here the week of December the 10th, right?
I don't think it's the 10th, it's whatever that Monday is that week.
Okay, so week of the 5th. Okay.
Right.
So you're going to be bringing with you, I think, 10 personnel
Yes,
from your
ma'am.
firm.
But not all for the school system. Many of those, for example, I have a person who's a tax expert who would be only working with the county government. That person is one of the 10 and would not be related, not be here. We have on our school team, I believe we have five of the 10 consultants.
So you have 5.
I count them for you, but if you want me to take the time right now.
Well, let me ask you this. Will you be providing the board the names of the members and a short summary of their education?
Yes, ma'am. They were in, their full credentials are actually in our proposal, full resumes as well as biographic abstracts. And we do not substitute people on our team. So if you have Jerry Williams, CPA, doing your the finance part of purchasing and that type of thing, that's who you're going to see. So there's no substitutions.
So how many licensed certified public accountants?
2.
2. Okay, you have 2. And so how many of them will be involved in the study of our school system? 2. Okay.
I think you understand that we have concerns,
Yes, sir.
and especially as it relates to the interviewing of the staffs. And as we went through this process tonight, I did not hear any motion from the floor to suspend any of our rules. So that, without having a suspension of rules, that limits your review only to talking to the superintendent at this point in time. And then the superintendent filling you with whatever you need, and if he wants the finance department, finance officer, excuse me, let me clarify. And unless this board makes a motion, then that's going to be the limit, and we'll provide any financial documents that you have requested or that will be requested. But that would be the limit. And then my final question I have after hearing a figure for the CPA is, what would be the cost of just the educational part of this financial review?
We didn't separate it out that way. I can tell you that in our budget, we did not separate it out this way. That in Burke County, I believe it was between $65,000 and $75,000. But I'd have to do the math for you because we did it as a package proposal.
Okay. How many man hours will you put into this review?
Oh my goodness. Are we talking about just the school system part
Yes,
of
ma'am,
it?
the school system.
Probably about 400 or 500.
Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Tatum.
Just as a point of reference to the chair with respect, policy 2220, in addition to the superintendent, also allows you as the chairperson to be the spokesman for the board. So that if you avail yourself to an interview along with the superintendent, that does not violate any of our board policies.
Thank you there, Mr. Tatum. So me and the superintendent, I was aware of that, but I was going to keep him on the fire. And see.
And the finance officer, I'm sorry.
That will be up to the superintendent if he will give you that. Yes.
No, that's up to me.
Yeah, that's, I thought you were shaking your head.
No,
yes.
I wasn't shaking my head that she has access. I was shaking my head that yes,
That's
it's
up to you. That's your decision. Okay.
We're going to follow 2220.
That's correct. So that's where we are as of right now. Okay. Any further discussion? You have any questions for us, ma'am?
No, I would say that this will be a challenge because we've never had the opportunity before to do a review, financial review that did not involve staff participation or directors' participation. And we will see. Now, and again, when we have a draft report, it would be based upon the limited access that we have.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.